Let's welcome Iveta Starikova. She's pretty famous in San Francisco Bay Area as a career coach. A lot of people are her clients, and Iveta mostly works with adults, of course, but today she will be covering find a job, how to get through the interview, how to be actually successful in getting what you need for your career. So please welcome Iveta.
Thank you for the introduction, Tanya, and for organizing the event. All right, Tanya, do you want to start with specific questions?
Yeah, let's start with question number one. Which jobs and internships to apply and how to find them? So we're talking about high school students, about college students, young adults. So anybody who is pretty new to the career path, what should they do?
I thought we're specifically focusing on high school students because it's actually a little bit different finding, internships for high schools than for college graduates, for instance. We can talk about both and also just anyone with experience. In general, I tell my clients to go look for jobs on LinkedIn. It's kind of the biggest aggregate of open jobs at the time. There are other search engines specifically for jobs like Indeed and Simply Hired. LinkedIn seems to be the easiest, the best to use. So that's the general answer, right? Specifically for college students, many big companies have programs, internships, that you can either just Google for, or you go directly to the company's website and you look for their programs. For instance, Google itself has a whole page for college graduates. They even help you with like resume preparation. I can send you the link if you want later. They are targeting college graduates, right? What's interesting for college graduates is sometimes you can look for rotational programs, which is pretty cool because you don't have to pick a specific profession for an internship. You can actually, if you get into the program, you kind of get to see a range of different professions within the company. Rotational program within a specific department, for instance, sales, or maybe a program will span many different departments in the company. So those are pretty cool when you're not sure what exactly you want to do.
I have a question. I think you're talking about already college graduates.
I did say that, correct. So that's for college graduates, right?
Okay. So they can choose a rotational program. Yeah, I've seen those in different companies. They do come for a year or 2 years, and they stay 6 months in each department. Right. Those are great. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's for college graduates. For high school students, there are not that many programs. I did find by just Googling, I found kind of collections of programs specifically for high school students. So there is something at Google, there is something at Microsoft, there is something at Kaiser Permanente, for instance. So if you just Google high school internship programs, you can find those. Another option, of course, is the Career Center at, if there is one at the school. Sometimes the school district itself will have resources, and those internships actually convert to graduation credits. Sometimes the city will have high school internship programs. So you have to go to your specific kind of geography and look for those.
You know, in San Francisco area, there is Youth First. There is Jewish Family and Children Services, the popular ones.
Yeah.
So the ones at least I know. Yeah.
Yep. And of course, which I think you reminded me of as well, when we chatted, parents are a great resource to help you find an internship. Sometimes at their own company where they work or their friends. So don't forget to tap into that wonderful resource.
Great. Let's talk about question number 2, resume writing tips.
That's a big topic. We can have a session just on that, of course.
Where do you put education on a resume for young people? Do you put it on the top or on the bottom? Because usually education becomes less and less relevant with your career, but for students, isn't it number one? They want to expose, right, and show all.
Correct. Yes, so you usually put education and on top, and not just the name of the school where you're at, but also what specific relevant projects you have done. These can be volunteering projects, maybe you're part of some club, but what's important in the resume is not to describe everything you've done in school projects or volunteering projects or even previous jobs. What's important is to highlight the skills that are relevant to a specific job you're applying for. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, sometimes it's really hard for students to create different resumes for different jobs. Maybe you can mention the skills that are most desirable at this time and age.
I really recommend spending the time. I understand not everybody has the attention span for that. There is no way around it. Different jobs have different skills that are essential, right? Some jobs require communication skills. Some jobs require analytical skills. I would say communication is a great essential skill for almost any job, maybe less essential for engineering jobs, but even there, if you can highlight there, you are a good team player and communicator. Those are important.
How do you prepare for the interview?
In every way possible. So ideally, you start by learning about the company. So read what you can on the company's website, in the news. Maybe you know people who work at the company. Maybe you can actually research the person who will interview you. If you have the name of the interviewer, you can look them up on LinkedIn, kind of get to know their profile, where they went to school, what state, where they worked. This way you kind of can relate to them a little bit better. And in terms of actual interview preparation, there are different resources that will give you a list of most asked questions. I don't know about internship interviews as much, but in general, interview questions are broken down into categories of kind of generic behavioral questions and subject matter questions, like let's say more technical, for instance. It's important to prepare for behavioral questions. The most important question to prepare for is tell me about yourself. So oftentimes people think it's, I'll just wing it, I'll just talk about myself. It's actually important to possibly write down an answer to this question. And there is a specific structure you can follow to answer it, to highlight, you know, your most important skills and your desire to work for the company.
How long can a person talk about themselves? Like 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes? What is the?
2 minutes at most.
I have a question about contacting people. It's going back to the first question. Can you write on LinkedIn to the person directly? Because you cannot just write to anyone, only to your people in your network you can write to.
Correct. So you need a premium subscription to write to anyone. However, you can first, for instance, make yourself known to the person you want to write to by commenting on their post. Or you can basically see their activity. Maybe they commented on somebody else's post. You can kind of interact with them in the newsfeed, and then you can try to add them and connect with them and then message them.
That's very, very cool. Very good approach.
Mm.
Right. So you have to do it like a couple of days prior. You're gonna write, right? So it doesn't look like it's all in 1 hour.
Yes, there are coaches who build their entire strategy around working through the LinkedIn network, and they say you never apply for any jobs, you just find a job by networking on LinkedIn, and that's how they do it. Basically, you invest a lot of time into like building relationships with people you don't know.
Very interesting. How do you still stay calm during the interview?
If
how people should practice? Should they practice in front of the mirror? Ideally
with other people. So sometimes you can find other people who are looking for jobs and you can test each other. If your parents or family are willing to practice with you, mock interviews are good, mirror is good, but I think what's important is to set your mindset for the interview, that it's not a court, it's not a place where you get judged. It's a dialogue you have with the other person. And maybe to remember that they're not interested in making you feel bad, they're interested in understanding whether you are the right person for the job, right? The hiring manager usually is a busy person. They want to outsource some of the tasks to someone they can rely on. And they're trying to understand if you're the right person for the job. So it's okay to have a dialogue. It's okay to answer questions and also ask questions.
Is it good to finish talking with a phrase, and this is why I am good for this job? Or it might be annoying.
It's absolutely good to say, and this is why I'm the right fit for this position, yes. Or you can also say, this is what I bring to the table. It's absolutely good to highlight your strengths as a kind of to summarize your answer, to summarize the interview.
What would be appropriate to ask during the interview? What kind of questions?
I usually recommend to kind of think about the interview as if this is your first day on the job. So imagine you already got the job. Doesn't mean you should relax and act like you're the big boss, but it kind of puts you in an interesting mindset where you're kind of ready to, roll up your sleeves and, like first day on the job, right? So imagine the person in front of you is already your boss, for instance, right? And you want to know what kind of things you would need to do. So, what do you expect me to do in this role? What is important to do to be successful in this role, right? What do you expect me to be good at a month from now? For instance, how can I help you the most, right? And also just questions about the company. If you didn't learn enough from reading about the company, you can ask questions about the mission, the vision for the next few years, the structure of the company, the structure of your specific team, how big will be the team I'll be working on. Is it just me? Are there other people? In what roles? What will be my interactions with them? These type of questions.
Do you have any other tips for the interview in general?
Be genuine, I think, be authentic, but also don't be shy to kind of demonstrate your strengths, what you're good at.
What about body language of the interview?
I don't usually think too much about it. I think when you have the right mindset, when you're relaxed, more or less, when you're having a dialogue, it's okay to lean back a little bit. Like usually when we lean forward, stresses the other person a little bit. We're too much in their face. But if usually when we're engaged but somewhat relaxed, we can kind of lean back a little bit. Some people might tell you the opposite, that it's important to sit very straight, or it's important to lean forward. I don't know. My personal thing is to be a little bit more relaxed and, lean back.
How about looking in the person's eyes? Is this annoying, or this is
I'm hesitant to give
plus or minus? Yeah.
I'm hesitant to give this type of advice because, there are people with neurodiversity who have a hard time looking directly in the eyes, for instance. I think it's, if you can, fine. If you can't, that's okay too. Just do your best. It's
very genuine usually,
Yes, again, I think there is an assumption that it's only genuine people looking in the eyes. There are people with neurodiversity, right? You know what that means. Like not everybody can directly look people in the eyes. They're still very genuine. By the way, your hiring manager might be one of those people.
Right.
They might not enjoy looking you directly in the eyes.
So I think it's important to pick up the clues from looking at
point.
the person and mirror them. I mean, mirroring helps, right?
You can mirror them or you can be yourself, but definitely don't try to, catch their eyes if they're, not looking directly at you. Also with, Zoom meetings, sometimes people just have the window to the side of the camera, so they will not be looking you, even though they're looking at you. Looks like they're not looking at you, so that happens.
people are shy. How can they overcome this? Is it with experience they will lose it? Is that just experience going to more and more interviews, or what can help to be less shy?
Let's make it a little bit easier on teenagers. Usually hiring managers know that teenagers are shy, especially good ones. So that they will not judge you because you're a little bit shy. So don't stress too much about being shy, but yes, with experience and mock interviews, again, practicing interviews with other people. I think having answers to most common questions ready will give you some confidence, so you don't have to freeze because you don't know the answer. So that's another thing we can talk about. Usually when people prepare for interview, it's important to have a few good stories which answer to most common questions. It's called story banking. So you have like a bank of your different stories, like how you handle difficult situation, what do you like to work on the most, how do you work in a team, things like that. Just like you can find those common questions. So you should prepare those stories. Ideally, you should write them out if you have the patience. I don't know if it's too much to ask for. If you don't, talk them through with your friends. So that's your story bank. You have a few stories. However, during an actual interview, somebody might ask you a question that's not exactly what you prepared for. Try to see if you can take one of your ready stories and adjust it a little bit on the fly. So this way you don't have to think of something completely new. See if there's something similar, but try to adjust it to answer the question as directly as possible.
Yeah, this is a great advice actually with the stories. Yeah, could it be personal stories as well, like not related to the job? Like, for example, if there is a question about difficult situation, can a person talk about difficulties at home or something like that?
So usually volunteering stories work well, right? School stories, for instance, often there is a question about leadership, like give us an example of a time when you demonstrated leadership. I mean, clearly it doesn't mean you have to have a managerial job somewhere. Anybody can be a leader, right? Or from time to time demonstrate their leadership skills. It can be something where you saw a difficult situation and you took the initiative to solve it, right? It doesn't have to be in a work environment. It can be on the street somewhere, can be in school.
Wonderful. Yeah, so lots of stories to prepare, or how many? 3, 4 would be probably enough.
I'll be honest, I don't know what are the most common questions asked for internships specifically. For college students and college graduates and for full-time workers, there are a lot of stories you have to prepare. Probably closer to 20, I would think. For high school interns, maybe between 5 and 10, I'm thinking.
They don't have that much experience.
Yeah, it's not, so interview questions are not always about experience. Actually, at biggest companies like FANG companies, right? Facebook, Google, etc. For some jobs, for most jobs, I think actually, the interview questions are hypothetical situations because they want to learn how you think and how you solve problems, even if you didn't have that exact experience. So it's also important to prepare for those questions to demonstrate that you know how to solve problems in a structured way.
What about if you don't know who you're going to be, but you're applying for this job that maybe it could be a random job, just a job to have, and you need to show your interest, right? I just don't know what you can talk about it. How can you show your interest if you are not sure? For you, it's just a job. It's not really your career yet.
I think it's okay not to know what the job is going to be called, or if you're going to like the specific job you're applying for. I think it's important to do a little bit of soul searching and at least know what kind of things you like doing. For instance, do you like to analyze numbers? Do you like to analyze data? Is that super boring to you? Would you rather work with people? or maybe you like to work with people sometimes, but you also really like to do individual work. You like creative work. Do you like programming, right? Do you like to find mistakes in people's work? So I think it's important to understand, again, your strengths. And there are personality tests you can take. I don't take them too seriously. You don't have to believe everything they tell you, but they might give you the right vocabulary to talk about what you like, right? So they will tell you, you are an analytical person, and you can think about it, see if that resonates, right? If it resonates, it gives you a good word to describe what you like doing. If it doesn't resonate, you can discard the personality test, but at least part of it. So I do recommend taking like a simple one. There's one I really like. It's called 16 Personalities. It's fun, it's quick, and it gives you a lot of good words to describe what you like doing.
And I also think that students already know what subjects they're easy for them, right? And if the subject is easy, most likely you do have a talent there. If you don't have to study hard and it's so easy and you enjoy the class, so that's where you're good at, right?
Mm.
So there's a hint for you. So what about people who are in college, if we can talk a little bit about those? You know, one of the hardest thing for college students, if they go to cool colleges, the employers and internships come to them. But if you're not in such a cool college, you have to search yourself. That's what usually happens. As a graduate of San Francisco State University, I can talk about myself that finding an internship was not that easy. I would say like it wasn't really like offered a lot. You had to search yourself, and I know that it's easy in other places. So when is a good time to find an internship? I know that after junior year, it's a must, because if you don't do it after junior year, it's like, how are you going to find a full-time job if you don't have any internships or any work experience, at least somewhat related? But would you recommend for college students to work at McDonald's or some other places? Should they even waste time in those places?
It depends. So first of all, some people have to work, right? Like I had to work since I was 16. Every summer, every school year, pretty much. Should one work at McDonald's? I know people who worked at McDonald's during high school became managers very quick because they were good. And now they're CEOs of companies, you know? So I think it's what you make of it. Focus on skills you want to gain. Again, there's opportunity for leadership in most places, not all places. You can take your McDonald's jobs and still write it on your resume in a way that demonstrates how you're a good team player, you demonstrate leadership, right? You focus on customers, for instance. You can collect stories for your story bank, right? So that's one way. Does everybody have to work at McDonald's? No. You can find jobs in your college. Like I worked for university relations at some point. For instance, you can find other internships, see what you can find. Sometimes you just have to settle for things, but sometimes you can go for the gold and find, really cool internships.
Well, the way you sound is it's more about how you sell yourself than what it really is, because the same job one can describe in one way that everybody wants to hire you, and somebody will describe that it's very, looks very boring. So I think a professional should look at that resume to make sure it looks appealing, right?
Yes, or you can try to do it yourself. It's not as much about selling. I don't think of it as selling. I think of it as highlighting your skill set, right? Again, if you know how to do it, some people are natural at this and they don't need to work with a professional. Sometimes, not everybody can afford a career coach after college. there are some coaches that will give discounts to people in certain financial situations. I do sometimes. There are also career centers in colleges. Sometimes you can find a good counselor. Not always, but sometimes some schools have really strong career centers. Use what you can. Again, sometimes your parents, sometimes your friends, classmates will be really good resources to help you through.
What would you recommend for college students? I believe, because I didn't do it in college, but I think it's so beneficial to keep friends with people you went to college with, because you never know how your career gonna turn out, and those people could be helpful in your lifetime. So keeping those relationships probably very important, right? While you're in college.
They're important at all times. So it's difficult for some people to think about it this way because they just want to be friends with people they like. So it's also okay to think about it. You have your friends, you also have people who are not necessarily friends, but they could be good networkers, right? I mean, you help them, they help you professionally. They might also be genuinely interested in you, right? So you can have help each other grow in terms of careers, for instance. Don't have to be good friends for that necessarily, right? So yes, it's important to find people who are interested in kind of uplifting you and networking.
Right, that's a very good mentality. Once you're in college, think about it as your career already, because high school you can choose friends to be with or not to be with, but in college it's already think about your career. Yeah, keep in touch with everybody because you never know. Yeah, what's gonna happen. I ran out of my questions. Are there any questions? Helen, do you have any questions?
Hi, sorry, multitasking over here. I don't. Thank you so much for the information. I was actually having Jaden here close to me listening. So thank you. I appreciate all the comments and suggestions. I don't have any questions right now.
Well, maybe Jaden can tell us what he's interested in. Like, is he looking for a job or?
So Jaden, interestingly enough, we actually had this whole conversation about, okay, you are in the 10th grade. What are you going to do in the summer? That should it be a time for the internship or anything? And Jaden started his own business. So Jaden is going kind of different route. So he's got a car washing and detailing business, and he is interested in that. And then he got a part-time job working for a friend of ours. It's a Tosi bar. So he's basically going to Whole Foods and Costco and doing the presentations and selling. Great for the communication piece. So he's meeting people, he's selling the product. So he's doing that. So he said that that's what he wants to keep doing. And I feel like it's probably would make a good story for the resume. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Sounds fantastic.
Non-conventional
wonderful experience. And the fact that you have a friend who can hire your teenager, it's wonderful. And I'm always saying that we as parents should be helping out children all the time. So great.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's what he's kind of sticking with for at least this year. We'll see what happens next year.
Very cool.
So good to see you all. It's
you as well. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, let me
get on.
Yeah, thank you. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. So if there are no more questions, we can actually say goodbye. But thank you very much, Iveta and Helen. It was very nice. I wish we had more questions because Iveta actually, I don't know if you know, Iveta is pretty famous in Bay Area.
I do know.
Famous career coach. Everyone knows Iveta.
Yeah. I'm very lucky. I have the best clients ever.
I think she is tagged in every conversation I see on Facebook.
Is that good?
Anything related to the job, it's like, Iveta is everywhere. It's like people are tagging her.
Nice. All right. Thank
All
you.
right. Take
Cool.
care,
Take
everyone.
care.
See you
Good to see
later.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.